Welcome to The Explainer. I am so glad you're here today. We're going to dive into something that, well, it might initially sound a bit like boring compliance paperwork, but stick with me because I promise you, it's actually a massive strategic operational asset. We're talking about EN 15625-2025. It's the new European standard for maintenance personnel qualification. And honestly, if you care at all about keeping plants running safely and efficiently, you absolutely need to understand how this standard changes the game.
20 years. Just think about that number for a second. That's the amount of undocumented, hard-earned knowledge that routinely just walks right out the door when a veteran maintenance technician retires. For the longest time, most maintenance organizations trained people the way they always have, right? Completely on the job, relying entirely on whoever happened to have the time to show a new hire which valve does what. But, that approach works perfectly right up until it doesn't. When that 20-year veteran leaves, they take a massive, irreplaceable mental database with them, leaving behind this really profound competency gap. And this brilliantly illustrates the core issue we are facing right now. On one hand, we have the chaotic reality of informal shadowing, basically assigning a new hire to just shadow whoever is free. It's totally inconsistent, it's risky, and it relies heavily on informal, gut-feeling judgment calls about who is actually experienced enough to handle a task. Now, on the flip side, we have structured competence. This is where a definitive framework steps in to clearly establish what a qualified maintenance technician actually looks like, regardless of their country or their specific sector. The industry desperately needed a common reference point to finally replace all that guesswork with actual structure.
So here is our quick roadmap for today's explainer. First, the maintenance knowledge drain. Second, introducing EN 15628-2025. Third, the 4 competency levels. Fourth, real-world operational benefits. And finally, number 5, managing qualifications with CMMS.
Okay, let's dive into Section 1, the maintenance knowledge drain. The competency gap in maintenance isn't just sitting there, it's widening rapidly. You might be wondering, why does qualification matter so much more right now than it did, say, a decade ago? Well, it's because modern maintenance is no longer just about going in and turning a wrench. It increasingly involves digital tools, IoT sensors, and data-driven decision-making, all layered right on top of those traditional mechanical skills. This evolution is drastically widening the gap between personnel who are adequately trained and those who are undertrained. When you combine that incredibly steep technical learning curve with widespread skilled labor shortages, it becomes super clear that you simply cannot close this gap through hiring alone. No way. You have to build that competence systematically from within.
Right, let's move on to Section 2, introducing EN 15628-2025. So what exactly are we looking at here? EN 15628-2025 is a European standard officially published in November 2025 that essentially establishes a definitive cross-industry benchmark for qualifying maintenance personnel. Now, it actually replaces the previous 2024 edition, but it doesn't just toss out the 2024 model and start over. Rather, it tightens it up. It clarifies the competency levels and completely removes those annoying ambiguities that organizations flagged when they tried applying the earlier version. Now, I should mention it's important to note that this is technically a voluntary standard, but here's the catch. Organizations operating in high-risk sectors often treat compliance with it as effectively mandatory, mostly just to satisfy liability and strict insurance requirements. The standard itself is built around 4 core areas. First off, a cross-sector structure. That means the framework completely holds up whether you are maintaining a food packaging line or a literal nuclear power plant. Second is skills development. This treats continuous learning as a hard, non-negotiable requirement, ensuring a technician's knowledge isn't permanently frozen the day they get hired. Third, competency assessment. It finally provides actual formal guidelines for evaluating whether personnel can perform assigned duties, which is something that was rarely done formally in the past. And finally, safety and compliance. This directly ties qualification to hazard awareness. It establishes a super vital baseline. An undertrained technician is a severe safety risk way before they ever become a productivity problem. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is flexibility by design. You might be thinking, okay, does the standard prescribe exact, rigid training courses that everyone absolutely must take? The answer is a hard no. The standard deliberately stops short of defining exact training content or verification criteria for each and every level. And why is that?
Well, because a verification process that's strictly built for a nuclear plant technician would be completely inappropriate and frankly unusable for someone working on a food packaging line. The requirements simply vary way too much across different industries. So instead, it cleverly defines the overarching competency levels and then leaves the highly specific training content to the actual sector-specific bodies. All right, moving into Section 3, the 4 competency levels. Let's see how this builds, step by step, right up the career ladder. Step 1 is Level 1, Basic. This covers technicians executing really simple tasks under strong supervision. They've got solid equipment knowledge, sure, but limited independent decision-making. Then we step up to Level 2, Intermediate. Here we start seeing technicians handling interventions of moderate complexity. They're performing basic fault diagnosis and routinely using digital tools, like a CMMS interface. Then comes Step 3, which is Level 3, Advanced. These are typically your senior technicians or engineers. They are fully capable of complex diagnoses, planning intricate interventions, and actually optimizing maintenance processes. Finally, Step 4 is Level 4 Strategic. These roles, very often maintenance managers, are responsible for defining the overarching maintenance strategy, managing the budgets, and directly connecting maintenance performance to the business's overall objectives. And notice how these levels are strictly defined by actual responsibility, technical knowledge, and organizational skill, not just by handing someone a fancy job title. Next up is Section 4, Real-World Operational Benefits. Consider this pretty profound truth in the world of maintenance. Diagnostic time is very often the largest single component of mean time to repair. Honestly, it's often more than the actual physical fix itself. When you implement EN 1568, your technicians become properly qualified. And better qualified technicians identify and diagnose those malfunctions significantly faster, with way fewer false starts. By cutting down that diagnostic time, which again is the biggest chunk of the repair process, you drastically reduce your overall intervention times across the board. So, to summarize the practical benefits here, we are looking at 4 massive wins. First, structured training entirely replaces that old ad hoc onboarding, completely taking the guesswork out of bringing on new hires. Second, like we just discussed, you get much faster, far more accurate fault diagnoses. Third, you absolutely achieve higher staff retention because you are actually providing clear, standards-backed career paths. And fourth, you get improved asset availability and extended useful life. Because qualified teams execute both preventive and corrective work far more effectively, they naturally reduce unplanned failures and prevent those unnecessary interventions that just quietly wear equipment down over time. Ultimately, the standard's entire emphasis on competence translates directly into uptime, which, let's be real, is the only number a plant manager actually cares about at the end of the day. I really want to emphasize this specific point about retention. Imagine losing a highly skilled Level 3 technician to a competitor simply because they offered structured career development and you didn't. That is an incredibly expensive and entirely avoidable failure mode for your business. But on the flip side, providing that structured career development internally, using the EN 1568 framework, that's a total game changer. Investment in technical development demonstrably improves job satisfaction and heavily reduces turnover. People want to stay longer in roles where they can actually see a clearly defined path for their own progression. Bringing us to our final part, Section 5, Managing Qualifications with CMMS. So the crucial point here is that implementing a comprehensive standard like this really requires organization, as CMMS is exactly what makes this scalable. I mean, as your headcount grows, trying to manage all these competency levels manually in Excel spreadsheets, it quickly becomes impossible. A CMMS seamlessly supports your compliance by easily organizing training records, tracking those important certifications, completely automating alerts when a renewal is due, and formally documenting those competency assessments we talked about earlier. Platforms like ManWinVin, for example, offer these really structured, practical modules specifically designed to manage personnel skills and training records. It just ensures your compliance with the standard is completely automated and totally airtight. As we wrap up, I want to leave you with this provocative question to really think about. In your organization, are you actively verifying competence or are you just rewarding tenure? EN 15628-2025 finally gives us the framework to ensure we are doing the former. It essentially proves that qualification is not just some abstract compliance exercise or annoying HR paperwork. It is a vital operational asset that drives faster diagnosis, higher retention, and maximized uptime. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer. I really hope this helps you look at maintenance qualification in a whole new light.